We're up to the fourth principle. The fourth principle was one which used to give Jews a lot of trouble, and the Rambam himself was very much ambivalent about it. The fourth principle is that the world was created ex nihilo, from nothingness. There was nothingness, and then Hashem brought somethingness into existence. And the Rambam in the Moreh writes that were it not for the fact that the Torah asserts that the world was created ex nihilo, it would not be against the other principles of Judaism to believe that matter always existed together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But once the Torah says it, of course, then we cannot believe it, and we don't, and it would be heretical to believe it. But the Greeks and the overwhelming majority of scientists, until the early 20th century, believed that the world exists in a static state, meaning that there always is matter, always was matter. Matter coexisted together with the divine from time immemorial. Now, this goes against the other principle of the Rambam, which is not part of 13 principles, but the Rambam's other principle is that time itself is a creation. And the time itself is part of the something from nothing. According to the Greeks, there was always time. There is no time before time and no time after time. It's always time. So this, again, was a very prevalent opinion until the early 20th century. And science, from this perspective, scoffed at religion for having believed in a world which was created from nothingness by the Creator. In fact, in science, there's an intrinsic contradiction. In science, you can't say that something comes from nothing, because there always has to be a cause. And that cause is in and of itself a thing. So therefore the thing comes from another thing. And therefore there cannot be any point at which there was nothing. Now this, of course, is a very difficult concept, a position to wrap one's mind around, because we always have the mentality of there being some sort of beginning, but the Greeks, and again, most scientists deny that. What happened to shake everybody's equanimity in this respect was the discovery of that planets are moving away from each other. In other words, that space is getting bigger and bigger all the time. And this was discovered in the early 20th century. And, sorry?
You don't have to stop it, because it could be, if you don't stop it.
Don't worry about it. Hashem will take care of it. So
how did they discover that?
They discovered that by, it's called the red, what?
Was that Hubble?
It could be, I think it was Hubble. The red shift. In other words, that as, the colors on the prism, the further away they get, the further colors away are, the more red they appear, or the more the red there is in them. So they demonstrate that planets are getting redder, so to speak, as they move away from each other.
And also it's proven independently because of the law of thermodynamics, according to which in a closed state, whatever system, it should reach, as long as time goes, it should reach an equilibrium. I mean, you can't find patterns, but you do find patterns here. So therefore,
right, but that's logic.
It would not have been the case that time was
granted, it's rational, but it's not. It wasn't commonly held. It's like the Doppler effect. The Doppler effect means if you have a car coming towards you, right? So the closer the car gets, the louder the noise, and the further the car gets, the softer the noise. And that's because the closer it gets, the more the waves are compacted of sound, and the further away it gets, the more the waves become diffused. So since in the prism, the way it works is very easy to remember because it's my initials, if you include the rabbi, RYGB, red, yellow, green, blue, right? So the more intense the color, the closer you get, the more it goes from red to yellow to green to blue. The further away it gets, the more red it gets. So therefore, they showed that the planets were getting redder and redder as time went by. Now, this was a tremendous revelation, and in fact, Einstein, in his original formulation of the theory of relativity, built in what became called the fudge factor, because he came to his theory of relativity led him to the conclusion that things were going apart. They were growing, and he felt this was a contradiction of basic science. So he corrected his formula in order to reflect that the universe is static. He later said this is the greatest blunder he made, and it really was pretty stupid because he cooked the theory in order to accommodate the preconceived notion which he possessed. So later on, of course, he corrected it to take into account the expansion of the universe, and of course, the corollary of the expansion of the universe is the Big Bang.
You see, Rabbi, even the Gdolim can make mistakes.
Yes, the Big Bang is an achron, so it's not. So everything came from this point of matter, which was the beginning of the creation, and that there was this time, this threshold, so to speak, when actually time and matter began. And of course, this is a very...
What caused the explosion?
What?
What caused it?
Oh, so it's a big problem in science. What caused the explosion? So now, if you want to be an apikoros, you have to work very hard at this point. Baruch Hashem, there are ways to accomplish it. But it's not so simple. Because, right, as you said, if there was just nothingness, then what would have caused the Big Bang to occur, right? So Stephen Hawking, for example, proposes that there have been infinite number of Big Bangs and big contractions.
And they are still.
What? Sorry?
Still, it's always.
It hasn't started contracting yet.
No, infinite number. I don't
In other words, it goes, you get,
Right.
you have matter, and expands like this for billions and billions of years, and then it collapses again.
It's a cycle.
And yeah, it's a cycle.
So there was never ex nihilo, it's just a cycle.
Right, it's just a cycle. Now, of course, we wouldn't know about previous cycles because everything which existed was compacted into nothingness. But into almost nothingness. But that was the cycles are out and in, out and in. And so therefore, that's how he reconciles for himself in the a brief history of time that the Big Bang with the belief that there is no God.
Is there like a problem with that? Just in the fact that, let's say you do have something that expands, right, and then it contracts. Well, what's the thing that's surrounding the contraction?
It's the lack of energy. It's the lack of energy to collapsing on itself. That's what they would say.
gravity, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
But we know for a fact that today it's most probably that the universe will not actually collapse. So if it thinks that it's actually the same kind of Big Bangs, it's just not true. And also it doesn't contradict other principles in physics, like conservation of energy.
So also
Because here you postulate infinite amount of energy
Right.
in order to produce the.
Well, but when in order to avoid God, you have to go to people need to go to great lengths in order to avoid there being a God.
Yeah.
Because
It's easier to accept the fact that
what?
it's just easier to accept the fact that he's there.
Right. No, it certainly makes life easier. Now, the thing is like this. What this principle leads us directly into is the issue in Judaism, which is a thorny issue of the age of the universe. Now, because unlike evolution is silly. To believe in evolution is to believe in something far more irrational than any religion, even voodoo and pagan religions. Because you're believing in something which never demonstrated itself to exist. Voodoo religions, at least they believe in forces of nature which they can observe. Right? You're believing in something which never ever actually was manifest in this world, at least not to any person.
Fossils are not.
Sorry?
Fossils are not.
Fossils don't evolve, they are fossils.
If you find fossils that are in different stages,
They were, so what?
so you could tell like this fossil wasn't.
How do you know how this, first of all, that fossil didn't necessarily begat that fossil.
But they have similarities.
They don't leave family trees, you know.
They have similarities.
So they have similarities. There are many similarities.
Bedrocks, and they find the one.
Okay, so there are many similarities.
Great.
But that's not real objection. That would also be microevolution, not macroevolution. Macroevolution means the shaila of how eyes came to exist.
But you have to.
I don't want to get into evolution. I'm telling you, evolution is not a kasha.
The far Western religion is not Israel of a Zara. It's not completely of a Zara. They do believe in something of a God.
Yes, that's true. Okay, I grant you that. Now, the age of the universe, on the other hand, is based on well-established scientific fact, meaning methodology, which has been demonstrated in the lab. Such the decay of radioactive materials over time occurs at a rate which is fixed and established within a very reasonable degree of accuracy. Not carbon-14 dating, that's relatively inaccurate. But there's krypton-argon dating and all sorts of other dating which exists. And these really indicate that the world is several billion years old. Yes?
Is there any way to, for something to have accelerated that dating?
See, the thing is like this. There are modern contemporary Jewish thinkers, who contend that the Mabul accelerated the process. But there is no evidence for that. In other words, it's just...
Is there any basis?
No. They're based on the Sfornu. The Sfornu says that before... The Sfornu contradicts the Gemara. The Gemara says that there were always seasons on earth. The Sfornu says there were no seasons before the Mabul. And according to the Sfornu, the world before the Mabul had an axis which was exactly perpendicular to the sun. So therefore there was no difference between summer and winter. Oh, the Mabul, which I guess something happened, like a giant comet hitting the earth or whatever happened, then the earth's axis was tilted. So that we have summer and winter, depending on which hemisphere is more close to the sun at that time.
But it was perpendicular. Wasn't that fried half of the earth?
Perpendicular, but far away. I mean, what do you mean?
So then it would be. What would be the?
No, it would be constant temperature the entire year. In each place, would be a constant temperature.
Yeah, but some places would be like freezing cold, another place would be freezing hot.
But no place would be hotter than it is today in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same distance from the sun.
When did this happen?
So?
Yeah.
I don't believe it ever happened. I believe the world was created with the tilted axis.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what Gemara seems to say about Azar.
Wasn't there like at the beginning of creation, wasn't there just spring?
No.
You never, no?
No. Creation happened in spring. It wasn't just spring.
I thought it was spring the entire year.
You mean, till when? Till Adam sinned.
All year round.
Till Adam sinned? Even after Adam sinned.
I don't know.
No. It was
I heard
certainly...
that somewhere, I don't know.
No, it was certainly not after Adam's. The Gemara about Azara says, and this is important Gemara for several reasons. Very famous Gemara. Gemara says that how did the holiday of Christmas come about? So they say that. Sorry.
You know what Dolphin is?
Daled and Ralph, I think.
It says that in the Gemara?
Yeah, they call it Saturnalia, which was the Roman holiday of December 25th.
Yeah, and that was Christmas.
The beginning of Christmas. Yoshua wasn't born. He wasn't born in the winter.
So what does it have to do with Jesus?
He was born in the He was born in the He was born in the spring.
So what does that have to do with Jesus and Santa Claus?
The Christians are brilliant at co-opting existing holidays.
We also did that according to Rambam.
Which holiday did we take?
That holiday, we cohabitated the Korbanos, pagan practice of Korbanos.
Oh, okay, it's the Korbanos, but that in itself requires a lot of explanation. But yeah, but not the holidays.
They made Ramadan and Yom Kippur.
Yeah, but they expand into 30 days.
Yeah.
It's a crazy religion. Okay.
They're very fun.
What?
They're very fun.
I couldn't hack that one. It says, the Gemara says, Gemara is going according to the assumption that the world was created in Tishrei. And it says, after Adam sinned, he saw the days were getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And he was afraid that the days would get so short eventually that the light would go out. And the earth would cease to exist because of his sin. As we know, this occurs until December 21st, the winter solstice. But at that point, Adam was not able yet to discern that the process had been reversed. It took him 4 days to realize that the days were not getting shorter. They had actually started perceptibly to grow longer again. So he made a big yontif on December 25th for the sun's, so to speak, return. And that became the Roman holiday of Saturnalia, which was then taken over by the Christians for Christmas.
Practically speaking, how reasonable is it to assume that Adam knows the difference between 4 days?
What?
That he knows the difference between 4 days, that the sun's... The days
It seems that the reason why we don't know the difference is because we don't pay attention to physical phenomena. Right? Did you ever look up at the sky?
Yeah,
Also,
Friday
we
night.
have lights
What?
outside.
On Shabbos?
Yeah.
I never look up at the sky. Especially people who live in the city. There is no sky.
Venus
So the
last 2 days,
yeah.
last 2 weeks.
So therefore we don't notice these things. But the ancient even Africans knew all these things about the length of the days and how they go shorter and longer. And each one, this is one. If people pay attention, they note these things. We don't pay attention. We have watches. What do we care?
It wouldn't be like a 4-minute difference within a day.
No.
Minute difference. It's not noticeable.
But over 4 days, it was not similar.
Each day in a day.
They could not. If probably.
Yeah, what can I tell you? The same thing Gemara says about Tisha B'Av and Tu B'Av, where they didn't realize till Tu B'Av that... it takes a while to notice, but after a few days you can notice it. And anyway, this is a... What? Because they didn't when they stopped dying in the midbar, so they still went into the graves every night until Tu B'Av. The Maisa, this Gemara is very important for several reasons. One of the most... I once got into an argument with my brother-in-law about this, who has his own blog, Divrei Chaim. But I said that from this Gemara, you have a raya that science was not revealed by Hashem to mankind, unlike Torah. Torah was revealed by Hashem to man, but science obviously was not, because here we have Adam not knowing a basic principle of science. The basic principle of science of how the earth rotates around the sun and how there are seasons.
But what do they mean? I mean, like Adam could know, according to him, the relativity theory,
What?
quantum mechanics. Adam knew.
According to him, he held that Adam might not know, but Chazal knew.
But they didn't write it down.
What?
How could they not write it down? If they knew?
Because it didn't concern them. That wasn't their main area of concern. So I find that very difficult. I don't like that approach. My opinion is that Chazal were not necessarily not necessarily have any revealed wisdom about science, just like Adam didn't have that revealed wisdom about science. What was revealed to man was Torah.
So how would you explain that Avraham Avinu would look into the Torah and
Look into what?
he would look into the Torah
And
and that's how, and he would see different things in the world. He would look into the world and keep things from the Torah. Like, for example, let's say he saw Esther, and Esther has a very interesting thing, because it's called Kaftim and creates Hadar. So when it says Hadar, why is the apple Hadar? Because Esther the thing stays from year to year, the fruit stays from year to year without rotting. So let's say Avram would see that, so he'd see, I have to use this for Dalaminin. So how does that explain with Adam Harishon that he didn't know what was happening in the world?
I don't understand the question. They were people who had the powers of observation. Was people could observe. When Chazal discuss science, they talk about whether either they observed or what the Greeks and Romans observed, which they acquired as knowledge. So people back then, as I know, as I was just telling Shlomo, were able to observe much more than we observe today. And they did. And they noted it. Sometimes they made theories which were true theories to explain the facts, and sometimes not. For example, Chazal say that that at night wells are hot, even though during the day they're cold. Now we know that this is not the case. How did Chazal come up with this explanation? Because they saw a phenomenon which bothered them. The phenomenon which bothered them was that during the day, the banks of a pond are warmer than the pond. And at night, the pond is warmer than its banks. So they came to the conclusion that the sun goes underneath the earth at night and heats up the water, right? Because the sun actually obviously goes underneath the earth, so it must go heat up the water. So we know that in reality it has to do with retention of heat. That water retains heat much longer than does earth, dirt, stone, whatever. So, but in fact, the water is the same temperature at night, probably a little bit cooler than during the day. It's just that relative to the banks, the temperature is now higher. Okay, the banks heat up more quickly and cool down more quickly. So Chazal, you and I probably wouldn't even observe this. Why? Because we're morons. So we wouldn't observe anything about a well or a spring, right? We just go there, snap some pictures, and go leave, right? Nobody's going to start exploring the temperature of the well. But Chazal explored this. They saw the phenomena. They came up with a theory. Whether the theory was scientifically, actually the correct theory or not, is not relevant. Because what the observation remains the same nonetheless. Okay?
So how does your brother...
One second. So the same thing with... Hashem did not reveal science to man. Hashem revealed... He left that for man to discover on his own. Hashem of course didn't reveal all of Torah either, but he revealed a substantial amount of Torah, even though science not. So there are many people who tell you that Chazal are infallible in matters of science as well as matters of Torah. I don't agree. I think Chazal very often are right. The overwhelming majority of times perhaps are even right, but they're not. There's no compelling reason to dafka believe, no matter what, that they were right.
What is it based on? What is there a reason that they're basing the fact that Chazal is always right in scientific matters? Is there a reason that...
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
It comes from the
It comes from it's ashkafa as opposed to it's ashkafa, meaning it's a perspective which people have, and then they assume.
Show me a source where that's...
I don't know if they probably in they would show you Achronim, I think. Not
Rishonim probably didn't believe that Chazal were infallible in
many Rishonim even didn't believe that Chazal were infallible in Pshat and Tanakh. The Radak argues on Chazal all the time in Navi, right? So what?
Isn't that considered a Agada?
Right. So Radak held an Agada can argue Chazal.
Yeah, some people even we can argue.
No.
Big Chadashim out.
No.
I thought it's not binding.
What?
Whatever we want with it.
It's not binding, but anybody would argue on it nowadays is an idiot. How do you don't really? How do you know that you understand it in order to argue on it?
He has big Chadashim.
Oh, Moshe Feinstein told me that.
Moshe Feinstein told you could argue on Agada?
Moshe Feinstein told me his shot on this piece of the story, whatever it was, which goes contrary to a Rishon or even a in some manner or form of way. I could see a way to believe him.
Yes, if it's Rav Moshe, yeah.
Wait, what's this? If there's a piece of God and I explain it my own way, it's something wrong with it?
What?
If there's a piece of God and I darken something or explain it...
Yeah, the Maharal would be very upset with you, with good cause.
What?
Maharal would be very upset with you.
No, but I understand.
Even the Rambam, by the way.
What's the problem?
Because the Rambam and the Maharal and many and most Achronim hold that even when Chazal speaking Agadata, they're speaking on it both superficially in a very shallow way, but also at the same time profoundly in a way which conceals great wisdom. So for Shlomo Musayev to come and say, no, I know better than Chazal, the Rambam and Maharal would throw stones at you.
At least I said I will explain the Chazal in a profound manner.
Oh, of course, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
So
what?
Who's
Who'd stone himself?
Who's Shlomo Musayev?
He's in front of you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you say Chazal. Are you including Rishonim, Achronim?
No.
Just
Tanoim and Amoraim.
okay, but what about so then if Tanaim then are not infallible, then Rishonim and Achronim are to a greater extent fallible, right?
In matters of science?
In matters of science.
Yeah, of course.
Wait, to a greater or to a...
I'm not sure greater or lesser.
we know when to take a
By the way, it's this goes back to something which we mentioned last week. Last week, you remember, those of you who were here, we were arguing whether learning Musar is Torah or not. So I've been looking for a source. The only source I could find so far is the Shulchan Aruch HaRav. The Shulchan Aruch HaRav says that Musar is Torah when it's based on Psukim and Ma'amorei Chazal, but not when it comes from Sechel Enoshi. Not when it comes from human logic.
What's Ma'amorei
So if you
Chazal?
study Rambam, when working, that's the Torah.
What?
So if you study Shmuel,
According to Shulchan Aruch Harav, wouldn't be Torah. Neither would a lot of Hilchos Deis. At least the fourth paragraph.
Why Hilchos Deis?
but the Rambam himself certainly thought it's part of Torah because otherwise he wouldn't put it in a lachic.
No, so that actually Rabbi Yaakov Kamnetsky asked that about Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah. We're clear the things which are not halachic. So why the Rambam?
Why not? Don't we have a minas which are proven incorrect? Still.
Yeah, but so the way Rabbi Yaakov Kamnetsky explains it is that the Rambam was writing a book which was supposed to encompass all necessary knowledge for an average Jew, not necessarily just Torah.
Not at all. He thought that this is just a media, or just a preparatory knowledge in order to study the philosophy with more halachic.
Right, I understand that for a average Jew.
Right.
You know, it's average Jew. This is what he needs. What it says in the Rambam, right? Then the people who are on a higher madrega, they'll go beyond that.
So he thought that even according to Rambam, it's not according to Torah.
Yeah.
Wait, so
He said that even according to Rambam, actually.
Because he had a problem. In other words, the Rambam says, although I don't see it in the language of the Rambam, he said the Rambam says that the moon is a spiritual entity.
Right.
It's not physical. And therefore, how could astronauts land on the moon? Right?
what means that physical?
And if the Rambam was wrong about that,
Right.
the Rambam, I don't,
We have
again...
no evidence that they land on the moon.
Yes.
They're saying that all people said.
Yeah, they are insane. They should be locked up and the key should be thrown away.
But why?
Why? I don't know why they're insane. But the evidence is so vast that to assume man did not go to the moon is to make yourself...
I don't
yeah.
hope.
So the... yes. So what was I saying? So he had a kasha. He said, I think it's brought down the Emes Liakov. He said, if the Rambam could be wrong about the moon, maybe it's wrong about Hilchos Birchas HaShachar. There are many answers to that question, but his answer was, he said, it's Torah, it's not Torah.
But definitely you can't ascribe this way to the Rambam because Rambam himself said that it's the essential part of the Torah.
I understand, but we don't have to. We don't have to accept the Rambam's definition of paradise. But I'm telling you anyway, the fourth parak of Hilchos Deis, which is all about what food to eat and not to eat, that is not Torah. I don't know if the two Blot and Gittin, which discuss just what?
You're right.
Just cures for various different diseases.
All right, well, why not?
I don't know if you make Birchas Torah on that either.
The Torah just
What?
The Torah means to retain a healthy society. That's what he said.
No, that's what Judaism is. It's not Torah.
That's why the mitzvahs have been given.
No, mitzvahs, yes, but that's not Torah.
Studying the mitzvahs, how to...
Derech Eretz Kadma La Torah, right? Is Derech Eretz part of Torah? No, it's Kadma La Torah.
That's not Rambam's opinion.
What do you mean it's not Rambam's opinion? It's a Chazal.
Derech Eretz Kalma Torah doesn't mean that it's not part of the Torah. Kalma Torah that means to reveal Torah. But
You want to show me where he says this?
because if the
Are you making this up on the spot, Shabi?
He's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, no, it's pretty good. Yeah, yes, yeah. Anyway,
So we're saying,
right? What? You eat organic? No.
so we're saying that if Rabbi Avadia decides to write a book on Sir, right? But all of his knowledge comes from Hazal. He never read a secular book. He's not a person who observes. He just reads Hazal, the Torah, whatever he cites halakha, whatever he does. So it's based on halakha, based on the previous knowledge. He writes out a book. He puts no quotations, no references points. At the end of the day, what is that book considered?
I don't know. I don't know, because you said it's based on Chazals, even though they're not explicit.
Yeah,
So I don't know. It's a good question. Okay.
so something is based on Hazal.
But I want to get back to this issue. One second.
Before you go back, there's one more little thing I don't understand.
Go ahead.
Okay. You said before about that in the olden days, you talk about in the olden days that Chazal is not necessarily right with some of their scientific things. So,
Right.
is it possible that I know with certain things in the olden days they were very good at seeing what was going to happen and all those different things, and they made beautiful buildings, architects, which we can't make today. But why couldn't they? The technology was really not good. Why couldn't Chazal make technology and become wealthy all their life?
That wasn't their purpose in life.
So would it have been a crime to do that? If someone did that, would it be like Hashem not be happy with it?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I don't think that, they were thinkers. We don't think. So therefore we,
I don't think it's a bit tough.
What?
They could write just half an hour a day, whatever they relativity theory to be very, very wealthy, advancing.
How could they be wealthy? What would make them wealthy by?
Yeah, who? Why?
Yeah, this would not be a bestseller. People are not going to go by grabbing theory of relativity, especially before the invention of the printing press.
All right, so I don't think perhaps how to cure some kind of disease or whatever.
So I say, which teaching are you going with? The ones that Chazal had special scientific knowledge? Because I said they don't necessarily have special scientific knowledge.
But if they had, according to the Pure Water,
no, even if they had it, human beings have not been improved by all the vast technology which we have today.
Everything's life has been created with a light bulb.
but just in terms of them, whatever, some of the, let's take some of the Amorai. He used to work, let's say, 3 hours a day. That's Hasidim. That's the time we used to work. And then to study 9 hours a day. So 3 hours a day, he could actually spend only half an hour a day, and then write down how to cure certain diseases, and then he would get a lot of money out of it.
Yeah, I guess they felt.
In terms of the egoistic.
Yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying. So I don't have to defend that position because I don't believe it's true. There is there is this prevalent legend which goes around the yeshiva world that the Chazon Ish knew how to cure cancer. Who's heard this one before?
No, brain surgery I heard.
No, besides brain surgery. I believe the brain surgery is about, the brain surgery is also said about the Chazon Ish, that he knew it from Hilchot Streifus. That's also not true. It's also not true. But it's not true. You can't know.
You know all this stuff? How do you know it's not true?
Because I know Hilchot Streifus, so I don't know backwards and forwards, but it ain't there. It doesn't say how to do brain surgery.
See, doesn't mean it's not there.
It's not there.
The story was that somebody went to him and the doctor knew how to do it or something, right?
Yeah,
the brain surgery? Yeah.
Yeah, they said.
No, I'm sure he didn't know how to do it.
He gave him advice.
I'm sure he knew how to do it because he read a medical book.
Not because of the straight.
No.
So where did that come from? It's not,
What?
Where did that come from?
No, certain people can't accept the assumption that the Chazon Ish actually looked at books of medicine.
Yeah, they said that he killed that.
What?
What's wrong with that?
Why wouldn't he? What?
No, I said why.
Right. So that's I don't either. That's why I don't have a problem with
Everything
story.
in the world is from the Torah.
No, everything in the world is hinted at the Torah, but you can't get it. You can only work backwards. Because once you know things, you can work backwards and find the hint of the Torah. You can't work forwards. It doesn't work.
If you tell them that you read that in the bathroom, would they?
No, I don't think. No, they might.
Because everything is straight today.
Yeah. Anyway, but they say that the Chazon Ish knew the cure for cancer, but would not tell it because then he knew that there's always a set amount of diseases, and if he gave away the cure for cancer, so then there'd be another disease in its place. Okay?
Why?
It's nonsense.
It sounds like it's made up in campfires and stuff.
Yeah, but they say this at a lot of campfires. They do. So it's not just because.
The purpose is to show how smart he was, or to encourage kids to learn to find the cure for cancer.
No, show how smart he was.
Okay.
So it's nonsense because if I know the cure for cancer and I'm equipped to say the cure, I'm not allowed to keep it to myself. So therefore, it's.
Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, you know the story with the girls?
What girls?
In Mesachos Brachos, there's a story with Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai that he has a dream where he sees girls who are in two graves next to each other. And before Rosh Hashanah, they say, let us go and see what's happening in the upper courts, right? So there's a whole story, and basically, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai gleans from his dreams that the girls say in his presence when is the best time to plant crops. So what he does is he goes ahead and he plants crops at the right time, while everyone else does it at the other time. He gets a bountiful harvest, and all their crops are ruined, and he just repeats it. So he's a Gadol Adar. So why isn't he mechuyev to tell people when to plant went to plant so that everybody should get a good harvest, not just him.
Because he didn't have reshus.
No, there's a din by there's no. It's not pikuach nefesh. It was pikuach nefesh, yes, but it's not pikuach nefesh.
I mean, well, cancer's not pikuach nefesh either. I mean,
What?
That's a survival rate.
But that's because people engage in pikuach nefesh.
So, okay.
Okay, you know, it's a good question why he didn't tell. I assume because this is he understood this is a gzeiras Hashem, and so it was a special privilege that he was granted to hear it.
He didn't have the right to.
Okay, so it was So, but we assume that throughout the generations, perhaps not today, but throughout the generations, there were many great tzaddikim who were knowledgeable of the gzeiras and shamayim, but they were limited in what they could say about it.
I am sure that there has to be a gadol today who knows what's going on.
I don't know. I don't think so.
It can't be, because how many so many stories of like a different gadolim?
They get recycled.
What?
Get recycled. Stories get recycled. Did you ever see Mad Libs?
Yeah.
Right, Mad Libs where you just plug in the word in the right place, right? Plug in the rabbi.
First of all, it has to be.
I think I told you about one Or Sameach Shabbaton many years ago. Not many years ago. I haven't been here that many years. One Or Sameach Shabbaton a few years ago. So everybody's going around telling stories, and when they reached my turn, I said, I wish I could tell stories. I don't have any stories to tell like everybody here. So Rabbi Rakowski said to me, so make them up. Well, that's.
You know what it is? There has to be stories, exciting stories, because every religion, listen, Christianity has exciting stories. Muslim has exciting stories. So if we have boring stories, we won't be the bestseller. It has to be exciting.
Right.
It has to be stories about
Wait, why does it have to?
What?
Right, it doesn't have
Because you have to have regular common folk with our intellectuals here.
You don't have to have
We
seven
do.
stories.
We want people need to be
And
entertained.
Yaakov isn't exciting enough?
That's stories.
Yeah. Okay.
Be fine.
But it's not exciting,
What
it's
about
not
Rebbe stories?
temporary.
What?
These contemporary Rebbe stories, they bother me because it's obvious that a lot of them are not true.
So right.
So,
How does it not strike people as unconscionable to lie?
They're not lying.
They're lying.
No, they're not lying. No, they got mixed up. They got confused.
So wait, they're not.
It's like broken telephone. It's like I was by the time at a certain point reached Shlomo on the back road today. What was that? Or at the beginning of this year, that the Bilvavi it became the Bilvavi as a Rebbe in YU. Okay, it happened very quickly in this room.
I said he was in you.
Yeah. By the way, we were supposed to talk about the Big Bang and the age of the universe, but I guess I'll finish that tomorrow night. Yeah. Listen, I'm against Gedolim stories. It's a matter of principle.
No, but
I don't like Gedolim stories.
this whole thing on the,
What? Why? Because most of them are not stories which are meant for, which are in any way or shape or form realistic for us to aspire to emulate. They're rather more like a story a fan would tell about his favorite baseball star.
What about the concept?
What about the concept?
Only if you can learn from them. Otherwise,
like I tell you, there was one story.
many of the Hasidic stories are about how this Rebbe made that moifes and that Rebbe made that moifes. This miracle, this wonder.
Okay.
How are you going to learn from that?
So are you saying most of them are not true?
No, I didn't say most of them are true. So most of them are a waste of time.
The story with Elie Wiesel. After World
Elie Wiesel?
Elie Wiesel.
What was the story?
The night, the author of the
I know he is. Yeah.
Okay, so he went to the Rebbe.
Which Rebbe?
His Rebbe. I mean, he was a friend of his.
He wasn't from after the war for a long time.
So after the war, when he started writing all his books, he went to the Rebbe to speak to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, "So what are you doing now?" He's like, "I'm writing stories about the Holocaust and everything." So he says, "Tell me, are your stories true?" And he said, "They're not true, but they could be true. Just because they're not, it doesn't mean they can't happen." And so what came out from that story is that the Rebbe only wants to hear true stories, basically. If you read that, there's a little piece on it, that he didn't want to hear any lies or anything. So it's hard, maybe at least that Rebbe, it was hard for me to hear that he would make some stories that he would make. I mean, you hear what I'm saying, Rabbi?
No.
So that Rebbe himself would not want to hear false stories about him or somebody else. Even about Holocaust, he wants to hear only stories that actually happened. He didn't want to write fictional stories.
Right, okay, so?
So why would we say that these Rebbe's are fake stories?
There are too many of them which are too similar, and we also have sources, clearly have traceable sources in general literature. For example, the end of Kiddushin, at the end of Kiddushin, you have Tiferes Yisrael. Tiferes Yisrael brings down what he says is a medrash. Medrash is that a king in one of the desert kingdoms at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim sent an artist to draw Moshe Rabbeinu's face, to bring it back to him, right? And when the artist came back, the king was ready to kill him because he said, this is not what Moshe Rabbeinu looks like. You drew me the picture of a common thief, right? And the artist swore it was what Moshe Rabbeinu looked like, and finally they went to the king, said, I'll go see myself, and Moshe Rabbeinu looked like that. And the king said to him, you know, how can you become such a great leader with such wonderful character traits? You have the face of a thief. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, it's true I have that face, it's true I have those characteristics, but I worked on myself to overcome them. And since I worked on myself to overcome them, I transcended them, and I became a better person because of it. So that's a beautiful story, but it's not. There's no medrash like that. There's a Greek fairy tale along these lines.
Really?
Yes.
It's not medrash?
Alright, what about books like...
About whom? About whom is it?
I don't remember.
There was another one I heard in high school that my Rebbe told me was in
stories.
yeshiva. With the two brothers, two Jews.
Yeah, there's no source to that either.
It's a Greek story. It's a
Yeah, there's no medrash.
Which brothers? What?
Where they built the Beis
No, not
Hamikdash.
that one. No,
Oh, not the two brothers who were trading there.
Oh wait, the two sides of Har Sinai, they go to each other.
Not to Zahar Moria.
The one I'm talking about, there were two brothers. There were two Jews. I don't know if they were brothers. But point being, the king, somebody owed money, and they said, okay, unless you get the money, we're gonna kill you. And it's like, listen, I need a year to go get the money. But it's like, but we need to have somebody who's gonna stay here for you in case you don't come back within a year. We're gonna kill this guy. So this Jew said, his other Jews, like his friends, like, listen, I'm gonna stay here for you, and I'm gonna wait here for you for a year, and if anything happens, will happen. So for the whole year, he was staying there in the prison, and so a year passed. That day came, and he didn't come. So they were like, okay, let's go hang him. And they gave the whole festival to go hang him, the execution party. And as they're about to hang him, this other Jew runs back with the money, says, I have money, and they save him, and they become like, and it shows like the close friendship of the Jews, how they trust each other and love each other. And the king, who didn't have any friends, as a result, became their friend also. This is the story my Rebbe told me in camp. Now when I came to high school, it just so happens the first story I learned is this Greek mythology story about the same exact two individuals, the same exact plot.
Okay.
I was wondering which came first.
It's classic. I'm sure the Greek story came first. Yeah.
Like, there are books like, Pesach Kron, and he has the Maggid Speaks, those are true stories.
No, some of the earlier books are. I think the earlier books are. I think the later books that you might have stories which he made up.
No, why would you say that?
I'm sure not the ones with names, just, Misholim, parables. I don't know. I think so.
Some of them, he says, some of them before, they're parables, but the other stories, he hears them from I think.
I'm sure he doesn't take achrayas for which are true and which are not true.
Right.
What
about
there's so many stories about the Arizal, and he only was alive and functioning in his role in Tzfat for 2.5 years. If you actually believe all those stories took place, then it would have to be over a span of like 200 years just for all the stories to get in there, right? But once you have
fly from place to place within the matter,
and maybe you could stop time, whatever you could. But the point is that there's a famous line they say about the stories about the Baal Shem Tov, the Shivchei HaBesht. Everywhere, it was very similar to what you said before, right? Yeah. So how does the line go?
Anybody who says
if you believe all these stories, you're a fool. You're a fool.
If you don't, you're a fool.
No, if you believe all these stories happened, you're a fool. If you don't believe they could have happened, you're not Bikoros. That's what they say.
It's not Bikoros?
Heretic.
Oh, okay.
You're not really a heretic, but yes.
A lot of Sfarim have like references to kings and stuff, and imagine if you were to stand in front of a king with this and that. I have no way. How am I supposed to relate to that? Because I've never met a king in my life.
Right. Too bad. Oh well.
I can't relate to it. Just
well, maybe your parents
can't like modernize these. Imagine if
president.
Maybe your parents could tell you about the.
Just plug in the president.
Nah, president doesn't count.
I think like a
the presidents don't have nowadays any stature.
I'm a skew to me, Mr. Obama.
So you're saying
I saw Peggy Noonan, who's columnist in the Wall Street Journal. wrote about Obama this past week. Obama is very similar to Mr. Spock on Star Trek, and not just because they both have strange ears. So that's the type of respectful comment people make about the president nowadays. Yeah.
I've noticed many Jews actually have this kind of ear. Maybe it has some Jewish origin.
Yeah.
I also have
What?
I also take an issue with you see books about Mashiach, and there's a certain book that I saw about Mashiach. He says write midrashim, but it's not necessary. There's all these midrashim conflict with each other. So who said his midrashim were going to be right?
Right. Nobody knows. That's what the Rambam writes. It's useless.
Right. So what's the point of him writing the book? And people
he thought it would be mechazik people's emunah. I don't know.
Yeah, what's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with being mechazik people's emunah.
Well, see, it's hard. What I think is Baruch Shlomo is that it's okay. It's not intellectually honest at some level. But if you pick specific midrashim, so then you're not being totally honest about what it could possibly happen. Right, Shlomo?
Yeah.
Just one more thing is that for tonight, to get back to the issue at hand, there are many different answers to the age universe question, which we'll get into tomorrow night, Mitzvah Shem. There are certain people who have said this came out in the wake of the Slifkin controversy a couple of years ago. There's people who said that it is also to believe that the world is any older than 5,770 or so years old.
Who said that?
There are a bunch of Rabbanim who signed on a statement like that.
Maybe they signed it or somebody else.
What?
Somebody put the...
Who knows? We can be down the Kafskos, they didn't sign it. This makes many very chashva Jews throughout history, including people like Reb Tzadok HaKohen, Rabbeinu B'chaye, the Ramban, others, into heretics.
Why would they sign something?
So obviously there are people who are not knowledgeable about Inyonei Machshava, so they have a simplistic view. So we will discuss tomorrow night the various different options for how to deal with it.
Yes, go ahead.